before we get into the video, I just want to say I honestly feel like trash about this. I thought this video was going to be a lot better than it ended up turning out to be. I wanted to have like clips in here of the show and stuff, but I can't do clips because they'll end up just fucking copyright striking me into the ground. So we're just gonna have like a little picture slideshow in the background while we talk about the series. And yeah, Ahsoka season 1 has officially concluded, and right off the bat I just have to say I thought it was pretty solid. It's nowhere near Clone Wars or original trilogy level good, but there were some things in here I definitely enjoyed. For those of you who don't know, I am a pretty avid fan of the Star Wars franchise and the Ahsoka character in general. I've even got a little shrine of lightsabers over here with Ahsoka's Clone War hilts. I know they're from Galaxy's Edge, but don't make fun. I still like them. I know my fandom might sway my opinion a bit, but it wasn't all rainbows and sunshines. There was still some stuff I didn't fully like or understand. Also, this is a spoiler warning now. If you haven't completed the full season 1 of Ahsoka, you might just want to click out and come back when you're done. So right away, I just want to say I wasn't sure at all how I felt about Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka. I just didn't really see it working out. When she was first introduced to live action in The Mandalorian, I wasn't the biggest fan of her portrayal, but I've got to say she really grew on me as the show progressed. I think she did a great job, and it really feels like she took ownership of the role. It feels like she followed the groundwork laid in the animated series, but made it her own in the sense that it's a way older version of the character, so she's a bit more wise and mature in this show. We pretty much got the whole Ghost crew in attendance too, besides Kanan for obvious reasons, and Zeb, which I've got no idea why he didn't pop up somewhere in here. Especially after he popped up in The Mandalorian for like 5 seconds. Like, even if it was just for 5 seconds in here, it just seems like a big wasted opportunity. I don't know what's going on with that. While we're talking about the Ghost crew though, I've got to say Chopper wasn't really as outlandish as he is in Rebels, but he was still cool to see. And Hera, I also wasn't the biggest fan of when I first started watching her in the first couple episodes. Once she started to go all kind of renegade on the New Republic, I started warming up to her, but the first few episodes she just really felt static. Like it was straight up Hera AI out here writing the script and acting it out all at the same time. It was also cool to see Jason, Kanan, and Hera's son, but anytime I'm looking at that little dude, I just know nothing good is gonna happen. I feel like he got written into a corner real quick. Honestly, let's just get all the main characters out of the way since we're already at it. Starting with Ezra, since we wouldn't even be here without him, I've got to say I enjoyed this live action version for sure. This isn't the same voice actor from the shows, but he does a good job with the little screen time he has, and I kinda like how super attuned with the Force he seems now. It's good he was evolving as a character during the time of Isolation. Moving on to Thrawn, I mean, this guy is awesome and we all know it. I'm glad they could have Lars Mikkelsen come back and do the acting because this guy really owns the role and has a huge menacing presence anytime he's on screen. Immediately when he was introduced in episode 6, you can feel him take charge of whatever scene he's in, and I'm sure he's having a great time fully fleshing out the character he's already played previously. Next, Morgan Elsbeth and Shin Hati were both good, but never really like scene stealing or anything like that. Just pretty good in their parts, and that's about it. We all know what happened to Morgan Elsbeth, but I'm curious what the game plan for Shin is going to be. Last but not least, we have Baylan Skoll. For anyone who doesn't know, the actor for Baylan, Ray Stevenson, unfortunately passed away shortly after the filming for this series, which is absolutely horrible. My thoughts go out to his family, and I hope he lives on through his various roles. Baylan Skoll was a huge part of this entire show and was a great adversary to Ahsoka. We all saw the huge cliffhanger the show ended on with Baylan, searching for something related to the Mortis gods, but this will probably never be fully fleshed out now. My hypothesis is whenever we revisit this story, it'll probably be about Shin setting out to find Baylan, finding out that he somehow died on his journey, then she decides to pick up where he left off. This would probably change the outcome somewhat, considering Shin doesn't have the knowledge Baylan did, but it would be an easy way to keep it going. The main story for the show is basically a live-action Star Wars Rebels Season 5. They should just scribble out the Ahsoka title and call this show Finding Ezra, because that's basically what it is. They try adding a time gap to explain all the random stuff Ahsoka's been doing in The Mandalorian, and why her and Sabine are beefing, but the show basically picks up right at the same point where Ahsoka and Sabine set off to find Ezra at the end of Rebels Season 4. During the show, we're supposed to believe this tension built up between the two characters over the time gap, but never seeing any of that on screen previously, or even in flashbacks in this show, makes it hard to care about. The friction between them really just feels like it's there to conveniently move the plot along at times. Like if Sabine never ran off with the star map in the first episode, she probably would have never got stabbed, and this show would have been like 3 episodes. You're not here to listen to a recap of the whole story, so let's just get into some of the things I enjoyed about the show, and some of the things I could have done without. Starting with the New Republic, it really feels like they're intentionally written to just seem so dumb and oblivious to all this Empire Remnant stuff, so it explains the rise of the First Order better. And all that stuff is pretty meh. Like, I could care less about explaining the sequels away. With the visuals, I mean, this show is kind of all over the scale. There's a lot of really cool scenes that look awesome, mostly the ships flying around in space, but there's also some stuff like this. The lightsaber fights are all pretty decent. Most of Sabine's saber fighting scenes are a little rough, but I think it's supposed to look that way since she's still pretty new to the whole Jedi thing. While we're on the Sabine topic though, I mean, we all saw her straight get stabbed through the stomach live in 4K. And she's just out here walking it off like nothing happened next episode? Like, come on, dog, you gotta be kidding me. I just absolutely hate that lightsabers don't mean anything anymore. You could probably get your whole arm cut off and reattached somehow at this point. I mean, I didn't want Sabine to die in that fight, but if that's the route they ended up taking, I mean, shoot, she should have been Dunzo RIP GG's on the spot. The other fights in the show look pretty good, but they just all seem very heavily choreographed. It feels like we're watching them go through a practice run of the real fight. I don't know how to describe it. The best fighting scenes by far are between Ahsoka and Anakin in the World Between Worlds. Now, those were absolutely electric. Those fights in Episode 5 actually felt real and raw. I mean, it's like Anakin is straight swinging through Ahsoka. There's so much power coming from each hit. And there's not a bunch of room for them to be dancing around and stuff. It's a really tight space, and it feels really fast-paced. I mean, you could put all the lightsaber fighting scenes from this show into a compilation, and those would look like they're from a completely different show. They're so next level from everything else, and I honestly loved it. Speaking of Anakin Skywalker, I mean, holy hell, I had no idea at all that he was going to be popping up in this show, especially to this capacity. That was an insanely pleasant surprise. Personally, wasn't a fan of all the de-aging they tried doing on him. I feel like Hayden Christensen still looks pretty good to be actually playing him, but either way, it's always good seeing him back, and actually seeing his character interact with Ahsoka in live action was a great fan moment. While we're talking about Anakin, I want to mention the Clone Wars flashbacks because those were also an insane fan service. I just really wish those flashbacks got more detail than what was given. Like, the fog was honestly criminal. It would have been a lot cooler if they actually filled out the whole scene. But I guess the fog is easily explained away of being a part of the dream because we're going off her memory. I mean, that's cool if that is the idea, but those scenes just feel super low budget, especially compared to when they're jumping back and forth between the World Between Worlds. Overall, yeah, like I said earlier, I mean, it's just pretty decent for me. It's certainly not in my all-time favorites list, and I probably wouldn't rewatch until season 2. But in the moment, there are definitely things to like and appreciate. If this show was animated, it might have banged, honestly. I just feel like it's a lot easier to bring a creative vision to life through animation, whether it's through the environment, action, or emotions. And that's just straight up Dave Filoni's bread and butter right there. The show heavily relies on you just already knowing what happened in Rebels and already being caught up with these characters. For somebody new just looking for something to watch maybe, it's gonna be hard for them to jump into this story because they've got no idea who these characters are, what's going on, or how we even got here. But for people like us who have seen Rebels and stuff, it's just fine because this is just a continuation of that story. It's hard to fully appreciate as a standalone Ahsoka show too, because this show is really just set up for the big Avengers-style team-up Dave Filoni's planning for his upcoming live-action movie anyways. This is kind of like his Infinity War moment where the villain wins, but the heroes are just going to come back and save the day next time. I will say though, this show's in a weird position with the time frame, because we already know everything that happens after this in the grand story of Star Wars. We don't necessarily know what's up with these characters specifically, but we know that it eventually leads to the First Order. My main hope for the future is that we get clarification on where Baylan was going, because that could actually be turned into a narrative that isn't just
somehow Palpatine returned.
If I had to wrap this all up into a rating today, 1 to 10, I think I'm going to hit it with a 6.5. It wasn't terrible. Ahsoka definitely had some highlights, but Loki Season 2 starts October 5th, so I'm probably going to be forgetting about this in a week. Without Episode 5, it honestly might just be a 5 out of 10. I don't even know, but that was definitely the best episode by far and carried a lot of weight for the season. Well, that's going to do it here for the review today. Sorry if it all seems kind of rushed. I've had a pretty busy week, but I really wanted to make a video talking about the show now that it's finally wrapped up. If you've also been watching Ahsoka, feel free to let me know your thoughts on the season in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed the video, please drop a like and subscribe for more content like this. This has been Lunar, and welcome to Bound.